anytime I played a newer player, I was very excited when they asked me after the game, like, "Hey, did I do this? Like, what could I have done differently?"
Such a good question. I have to say I love the rabbit, Merlin Rabbit.
We're talking a year ago. We didn't even know what this game was, right? Like, we barely understood the rules of the game, and now here we are, 2,000 plus strong, ready to raid like Alana. You know,
It's something very important to me. Not only from a competitive aspect, but as somebody who like I'm just very excited about where this game is today, where it's going.
you have been a part of all of that, and I think it's remarkable to say because I I honestly think that you are truly one of a kind in that aspect. I don't know many players that go into a brand new game and so very much want to succeed at it competitively that you have.
Every step of the way that I've gone, that Ben's gone, that our whole group has gone through Set Champs, like we root each other on. And there's something to be said kind of at a not competitive but local way to have that.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Forbidden Mountain. Today we have a very special guest. I knew I was going to fuck this up. How the hell do I pronounce your name?
It's Melissa Illgner.
Elgner. Elgner?
Illgner, like ill.
Illgner. Is it like, what is that?
German.
German. Illgner.
Yes.
Okay, Illgner. We're just going to keep that. I love it. So we are here enjoying the day with Melissa Illgner. Tell me a little bit about yourself real quick, Miss Lizard Kitty.
Let's see. I'm an all-time Disney lover. I've gone to the parks a bunch of times. When I was younger, I went a couple times with my family, kind of been to all things Disney, and that's pretty much what hooked me into Lorcana was just a chance to play something with all the things I love while not being able to be in Florida running around like a child at Disney World.
Fair enough. So I have been quoted already at this point, calling you a Lorcana prodigy, and I have specific reasons for that we're going to get into. But first and foremost, you were there, okay?
I was.
So you were at D23 the day that Lorcana was like unofficially announced / release. So you saw some of the craziness. So talk me through that a little bit.
I did. So I have to say that I was at D23 because like I just mentioned, I love all things Disney. Ben, my boyfriend, and I were both there. We were, so everyone who goes to D23 usually has like a purpose. Some people want to hear the panels and kind of like, what are the new movies coming out? What are the new attractions in the parks? Some people care about meeting celebrities, meeting actors, actresses, singers, whoever it may be. And then obviously, like any Star City Games convention, Comic-Con, there's booths with vendors. So Ben and I had known that Lorcana or that Ravensburger was going to be there. We didn't know where on the floor it was going to be because we were in a different line at the time, but we knew that it was going to be exciting. So unfortunately, we were not one of those first few people lucky enough to get
You.
to get a set in line. But they had this like giant booth that you got to walk through. And at the time, like it had a brave little Tailor Mickey. And I didn't really understand what it was, but they were trying to immerse us into that kind of fictional world that they were creating. So they had a bit of a walkthrough. And then when you got kind of through to the other side, they told you a little bit more about the game. If the cards were available to purchase in that kind of collector set, that's where you were able to get them. And then promotions were being handed out as kind of a thank you for spending your time. There was definitely a lot of chaos because there were people who didn't know what they were doing, but collectors are collectors. And then I think there was a group of people who were just hyped that Disney was coming out with a card game, which kind of, quite frankly, is where my head was at, which was just, this is something cool. This is something I want to be a part of. I want to learn more about it.
Fair. So Lorcana is your first card game.
Yes.
Okay, so obviously Disney fanatic, right? But what, was there anything before that made you even remotely interested in card games?
For me, not a ton. So, my boyfriend and I have been dating for over 10 years. He's been both a card game, board game, games, everything player his entire life. So like we're always looking for things to do together. And from a Disney aspect, it kind of just hit a spot where we said, this is a commonality that we both really like and enjoy. And I know games are something that he does all the time anyway. So for me, it just felt like a really easy way to say, hey, I want to try something new. It's something I think I can wrap my head around, not only because card games, obviously, they're not simple to pick up, but I have a very logical brain in the way I think about things. So I knew that it was something that if someone sat down with me, I could understand. And like Disney art just makes me smile. Like there's something to be said about looking at Olaf and just saying, like, yeah, that's Olaf.
Yeah, he likes warm hugs.
Yes, exactly.
All right, so this is like pretty cool because you're coming in ground zero, no literal zero, like gaming background, right? Like we're in a board gamer, we're in a card gamer. Do we play video games? Like we're like what, like anything?
Like I've played Mario Kart, I've played kind of your basic video games, I've played your basic board games, I played Catan.
Okay, okay.
But very much like childhood board games, not I'm going to spend my Friday night in a game store and play video games or
Okay.
board games.
So then, here we are, fast forward forever years later at this point. What do we? So D23 would have been 2 years ago almost, right?
D23 was September of 22, and
Yeah.
then Gen Con was August of 23.
Right. So we're talking, wow, what's that, 18 months?
More or less.
Maybe a little more, 18 to 20 months, something like that. And now you're here, completely invested in Lorcana. So there, you were there, you got to experience the whole thing. You were experienced chapter 1 from day 1. You guys were collecting, correct?
We were hooked and knew we wanted to play like as soon as it came out. The weird part was, so from like September of 22 until really Gen Con, there wasn't much to be known. Like everything was held very close to the chest from the Lorcana team. So as much as we knew there was hype, like I had no idea what I was getting myself into or how it was going to work.
Sure. Okay, but now we have you finding your way to traveling to PAX Unplugged, traveling to SEG cons, about to travel to Lorcana Challenges. So walk me through that process of going, I have never played a card game, to I want to compete at the highest level.
So it's interesting. So I went to Gen Con. I did not go to Gen Con solely for Lorcana, but knowing that it was going to be there was another exciting element for me because it happened to be my first time going to Gen Con as well. I was lucky enough to get into one of the Learn to Plays. And I went into the Learn to Play not knowing a ton, but knowing, hey, I'm going to get a starter deck and try to figure this out. There was a group of us who were there, and a couple people had some very educated people who they played with and definitely got more understanding of the game. I, on the other hand, had somebody who was not as helpful from a Learn to Play perspective. So I kind of sat down and didn't know what I was doing, but I was like, okay, this is cool. There's art, there's cards, there's mechanics, but I don't fully know what I'm doing. And they kind of let you take your time, but at the same time, there were so many people coming in and out that it wasn't as much as a Learn to Play as in my head I thought it would be. Fast forward a few weeks, release happens, people are able to get their hands on some level of product. One of my locals stores was doing a small like release party. And so we all went in and everyone got a starter deck and played for the night. So I started to kind of sit down, really look at the cards and understand what the kind of abilities and mechanics were. And then I kind of just wanted to figure out how to play. So I spent time reading about the cards, understanding what the different colors do, kind of what's the theme of each color, not tied to movies necessarily, but where does card draw fall in, where does discard fall in, and kind of how do these pieces fit together. I'd say kind of like one thing led to another, and I was going to locals every week. I was playing, I was having fun. Eventually, the store I predominantly go to is more of a casual store, which for me was really nice because never playing card games before, it was very welcoming. Like there happened to be a ton of people at my local store. Shout out to those who I know are watching and waiting for me to say something.
You can cut the store out.
So when we were at Omar's, a bunch of us were sitting there playing, and eventually there was a group of us who it was more than just like, okay, I want to play this color because Pongo is on this card, and more,
Right.
hey, evasive is a really strong mechanic and I want to learn more about that. And
Okay.
so as I started playing, I said, hey, I'm having fun at locals, but I want to play against people who really want to play versus I want to play because I like looking at Olaf or I like looking at Pongo on a card. Um, Turned out there was a different store that one weekend was doing like a small win a trove tournament. So Ben and myself decided, hey, let's build our decks. Let's just go try it out. This was after PPG had had their tournament and some other kind of meta and things had evolved a bit. So it took more
Right.
time to learn just how the game works, what everything looks like. I forget how many people were there. It wasn't huge, but it wasn't like 5, 10 people either.
Sure.
It was a good intro tournament, I'd say, because quite frankly, I didn't know what I was getting myself into at all.
Fair. Fair.
But had a good time. At the time, I was playing Amethyst Emerald. Um,
Hmm.
I think I ended up getting third. I
Okay.
made it to the winner's table, but
Okay.
didn't understand how Swiss and tiebreakers worked at the time.
Okay. Fair.
So that was my own learning point, which obviously we've come a long way since then. Um,
Right.
but after that, definitely got more of a sense of the competitive scene and just how tournaments work. A few weeks after that, had found out that a store about an hour and a half away in Connecticut was doing an enchanted tournament. And so we decided, hey, let's just go and see what this is about. Like, we played in a tournament here, we did okay. Like, give it a shot, see if we have fun.
Right.
Definitely was a rude awakening. I did not
Ooh.
do well at all, like
Okay.
horrible. But there was a ton of really strong players who, quite frankly, I've played at SCGs and set champs since then, and we've had really good conversations and both have acknowledged, like, hey, you definitely didn't know what you were doing then, and you've come a long way since then.
Sure. Sure.
But it made me realize that there's a lot more to this, and there are people who have played games for 20, 40 years, and it doesn't matter who's on the card or what the card is, they're just in a competitive scene. And I don't
Right.
know, something about that kind of just like piqued my interest in a weird way.
So I guess before we get to that, you know, you're I think you're in a really real like a really interesting point here because you took a leap of faith, you took a gamble on trying to love Lorcana and love this card game because you're a Disney fan. And then you found yourself wanting more from that, right?
Yes.
And I think that it's really really interesting because it almost feels like a kid, like first is like finding out and figuring out this thing where they're like, wow, this is cool, like, but what else can it do? Like, give me the Lego set, let me play and do some customization, things like that. You really took to that and you're like, no, I had fun, I had a taste of what it felt like to almost win, and then I go to another tournament and I didn't do very well, but you left that tournament feeling like you wanted more.
It made me realize that like I need to put time into this if it's something I want to do. But at the same
Okay.
time, I was having fun doing it. And I've always been the kind of person who says like if you put the time into something, you get as much out of it as you put into it at the end of the day.
Have you always been a competitive person?
Yes and no. Like I've
Okay.
always done sports teams and clubs and like childhood competition, but I'm also not the type of person who's going to run and scream if it doesn't go my way.
Fair. So we fast forward to PAX Unplugged,
Yes.
and you travel down from Boston to play in the first official Ravensburger constructed tournaments. Did you also play in the starter deck tournament?
I did. I did not
Okay.
do as well in the starter deck tournament. I was there though.
You were, yeah. I know you were there. I was there. So what I find what I find interesting is these paths that kind of cross, right? So you and I met in Philadelphia at PAX Unplugged. We had a game together, and after the game, we had a wonderful conversation. And from there, it kind of stroked into other things, and we'll get into that story. But what I find interesting is that we are sitting here 4 months after release, and you were playing the most competitive deck in the game.
Yes.
right? So we went from just dabbling in Lorcana to showing up and playing Ruby Amethyst Mirrors at PAX Unplugged. How did we get there?
So, like I think I just mentioned, the first kind of competitive deck I was playing was Amethyst Emerald, and it was a fun deck. Like I enjoyed it. Obviously, that deck has come a long way since then. We've seen several people winning, doing well with that now. But at the time, it didn't feel strong enough. And granted, I was no expert at anything. Like Ben and I were sitting together talking every step of the way. What should be built? What is potentially in meta? What can we even salvage and pull together really with our play sets? And we kind of concluded at the time that what we felt was the best in like the middle of chapter one was Ruby Amethyst and Steel Song. Um,
Mhm.
and I kind of just took a gamble and said, I'll try this, partially because I knew he at the time wanted to play flutes, and partially because I was learning something new either way. So
Right,
if we're sharing a play set at the time and we don't have 8 of every amber card, then we're going to use 4 of an amber card and 4 of some other card so we can both
right,
kind of use those legendaries that we needed at the time. Like there was no way we could both play Elsa. There was no way we
right.
could both use everything. Um, and so I kind of just picked it up and started running with it. Definitely didn't play it right in the beginning, but after a while, got a grasp on it. When Rise of the Floodborn came out, I kind of sat there and just started reading about new cards and said, I want to stick with this. Let me try and poke things in and see what I can pull in and out and go from there.
Prayers for it. So you're there. You stuck with Ruby Amethyst for quite a while because just last weekend you found yourself as a finalist, winning a Stitch and a playmat. What has made you stick with Ruby Amethyst for like literally through an entire rotation of set two into set three?
You know, I really like the Amethyst package. Even before Bounce was there, like there was something about card draw that just felt right to me. I don't
Mhm.
know, quite frankly, if it's because I didn't know as much what I was doing in the beginning, but there was some level of just this felt like something I could wrap my head around and run with. And after a while, I just kind of kept building on it. I tried other things for a little bit, but I felt like the more I was putting into one thing, the more I could understand it. And so I just kept building the foundation and running with it.
So closer to a master class on Ruby Amethyst rather than like a broad overall of everything you could learn.
Yeah, I mean, like I definitely think that I can have conversations and take other decks and run with them. I'm not confident I'd be 100% as successful with them like right off the bat, but that's not
Sure.
to say I don't want to give anything else a shot. But in what at the time felt like a lot of challenges are coming, a lot of new and exciting things are on the horizon. I kind of wanted to stick with what I felt good with as long as I knew I could still make it work. And as Inklands then came out, I felt confident that I could still build on top of that foundation.
Well, you did pretty good, right? You won 4 stitches, you won a champion playmat, you won a runner-up playmat. I want to talk about set champs a little bit. So, before this in the Inklands, you actually, for everyone that doesn't know, you won 2 Elsa Enchanted tournaments as well. So in the last like 2 months, you have picked up 2 Elsas and 4 stitches and 2 playmats. You've been on an absolute tear in the committed scene in like the greater Massachusetts area, I would say, right? What does it mean now for you to go and be successful in these tournaments, and like why, like what is your like your future thoughts on how to continue that success?
You know, it's really interesting. So I know obviously I met up with you and a bunch of people when we were in Philly for SCG, and quite frankly, like me going to SCG was an experience. I didn't think I would top. I didn't think I would place high, but I also knew that in order for me to push myself to be better, I had to play against competitive people who either do this all the time or just quite frankly know more about it than I did. So I kind of went into Philly with that mentality. And after that, there was like something there that just kind of clicked that was I'm around very like minded people. And so if I can talk to the right people, keep playing with the right people, like I can push myself more. And I knew that there was 1 week after SCG Philly, an Enchanted Elsa tournament at Great Stories in Massachusetts. And in my head all along, I was committed to going to that. Now, whether I was going to play the same thing I played in Philly or something completely different, I could not have told you that on Saturday when we ran into each other, or quite frankly,
Right.
Sunday when we left. But
Right.
I knew that I wanted to kind of just keep going and make myself better, essentially. So reached out to friends, talked to people, kind of picked people's brains after seeing what worked that weekend to play, and successfully one thing led to another, was able to win that tournament. The tournament was not an easy battle. I bubbled. I was the 8th person. I had good tiebreakers because two
Yeah.
people who beat me in Swiss were in the top, and that's why I got the spot. I then happened to knock both of those people in the first round and second
Redemption.
round.
Anime redemption arc.
I did have a redemption tear. Both those players are great, and I really enjoy playing with them because I've played with them since then also. But it kind of just, I don't know, it felt really good after that. Like I was really excited. I did not, as much as I wanted to win Elsa, I did not believe in myself that day. I have to give Rob shout out there. He took a chance and started befriend, like we were talking just how could I play the game, and at the end of the night when I won, I was like, Rob, I did it. And he goes, yeah, of course you did. And I said, what do you mean of course I did? He's like, I played you last weekend, of course you can do it. And just,
Yeah.
I don't know, there's something about it, it just kind of clicked. So
One of the hardest things people do in any game is beat themselves before they play. I humbly believe that. I humbly believe if you sit down at a table and you look at your opponent, or you know your opponent's like deck, and you feel like you're in a bad matchup, and you literally put yourself in the position of like, I can't do this. Generally, you're right because you don't have the right mindset. You know, like you have to go in and go, I'm here. I am on the same level. I paid the same entry fee. I am in the same tournament. I'm going to be as good as anyone else can be today. And I try to tell people that all the time because, you know, at the end of the day, there can only be one winner, but it doesn't mean that it can't be you, right?
right. And so
So
it was interesting because like obviously that tournament happened, and like that was the first for me. That was my first win, my first big win. A few weeks later, another Enchanted tournament came up, and quite frankly, to me, it wasn't the fact that it was an Enchanted tournament. I mean, there was an Enchanted tournament, there was other 1Ks and events going on, and I don't know, to me, I'd rather have an item than just
yeah.
say like, "Hey, I won the cash." Personal preference. I know everybody has their own opinions on that.
Does that have like that happens to be just because like you are a fan, right?
It's 100% the Disney fan in me. Like, first of all, I love Frozen. Like, I'm wearing an Olaf shirt. Elsa is a queen. She is. There's a lot in the movie that just like really sticks. And
Yeah.
like, if I was looking to have an enchanted card, and this has nothing to do with the value, like the Elsa card is just beautiful.
Right.
So like, it was really exciting to me when I won that first one. When the second one tournament came around, to me, it was more about preparing for set champs than it was to win a tournament. Like, yes, of course, it's great to win, and TCG House of Cards ran a fantastic event that day. Even the owner of that store, when we were all there, said, "Wow, so many more people came out than I expected." But to me, it was, I want to be in a room full of competitive people who we all are sitting here wanting to win this card, but we also all want to win Stitches in a few weeks. And so like I was treating it just as trial and error. Is my deck going to work? Is this what I feel good playing in 2 to 3 weeks time? One thing led to another, and of course you had featured me on your video. So I walk into that room and everyone starts looking at me saying, "Hey, weren't you on the Forbidden Mountain?" So a little bit of a target on my back in that sense, but just like you said, went in level headed, I'm here to play, and ended up succeeding again. So
Yeah, that's a funny one because you were the first person that messaged me and said some people kind of were a little bit mean to me, and I like in my head I'm like, wow, that sucks because all the times that I talk with Dick Burns, he'll always say like people love me, like it's thank you so much, and you were like one of the first people to come out like, yo, people were kind of mean, so like,
I don't know
not
if it
mean,
was
but like like hesitant, you know.
That's exactly what it
I'm
was.
not saying, I'm not like throwing shade at anyone, obviously. It's just like one of those where you might have had a different experience than others had that I've featured and things like that.
No, I think that's totally what it was. It's just like I think people tend to get caught off guard when
Right.
they see somebody like you said, like I haven't played at TCG before, and if people ask me, I'm not going to hide that. Like I say,
Yeah.
no, this Lorcana is the first TCG I'm playing. So I think people see like girl, glasses, curly hair, and think one thing, and then we sit down and play, and they're like, oh, you know what you're doing. And so the fact that I happened to be featured from my prior success and then seeing me walk into that room gave another element of competition. Like when I walked into SCG and saw George and Rob and all these people who had done well previously, it's just that kind of like, oh snap moment of you're in a room of competitive people.
Okay. Okay. I think we're at that point in the time where I like to play a little game.
Uh-oh.
So this game's called Repeat After Me. I will say a statement, and then you will repeat the statement and include the answer to it.
All right, I'm ready.
Are we good?
Yep.
The first thing I would suggest to a new player to get better is...
The first thing I would suggest to a new player to get better is don't be afraid to ask questions and take your time. You're not going to pick up on it intrinsically. I didn't understand what challenging was versus questing the first time I sat down. Like to me, there were these two dots on the side that said, if you turn your card sideways, you get +2. Versus if you challenge an opponent, somebody takes 2 damage. But asking questions to, at the time, the TO, or asking the person running locals, you then pick up on things and learn things. And not to be corny, like when we were in school or in college or working at your job, like you ask questions to get better. And that's how I learned and got to where I am.
I think it's one of the first things I had said when we were starting our podcast was like, just ask anything, like literally anything. And I will say it throughout Set Champs, and I don't know if you felt this way too, but anytime I played a newer player, I was very excited when they asked me after the game, like, "Hey, did I do this? Like, what could I have done differently?" That's perfect growth for the game because I'm always going to give you the answer because like that's just me. I'm like a teaching dad at this point. But B, it's good because it's good community as well. Like having that conversation with your opponent, kind of learning from them. Even in a loss, you can still take away and gain so much information and knowledge. And I really feel like the Lorcana community as a whole is so giving in that matter.
I agree. One of the set champs that I played in, it ended up being a 21 person event. It was supposed to be 22. Somebody had backed out. They couldn't fill the spot. Me and some of my locals kind of playtest crew group were 8 of those people. So obviously we had a lot of friendly fire that day. And I played one of my friends to get into the top 8. Like luckily we both ended up getting into the top 8, but he had to play out one more game than I did. But my friend Pete and I sat there and we were talking, and after the games we both said, what could we have done better? Like what did we misplay? Because we didn't want to pause during the game because we're both competitive, we both want to win, but we both knew that we had learning opportunities for each other. So we took 5 minutes when we were done, debriefed each other, and both talked about, hey, you were on playing a rabbit, and instead of playing a rabbit you should have played a goat. Or, hey, you should have used your Maleficent 3 instead of using a rabbit, and here's why. So.
Very, very fair. All right. Question 2. Or, whatever we're doing here. The best card in Disney Lorcana is?
The best card in Disney Lorcana is... Such a good question. I have to say I love the rabbit. Merlin Rabbit.
Ooh. It's a good one. It's a very, very good one. I'm sure you've won many games playing a rabbit.
I've definitely won many games playing a rabbit, but I mean, it kind of goes back to what I was saying before. There's something about card draw that just kind of always stuck with me. Every deck I've ever played for more than like trial and error purposes has had Amethyst in it. So I think there's, for me, just something about the element of when you play and when you take it out of play that just excites me more than singing a song or drawing for turn.
So my follow-up question is the rabbit too good?
Um, I don't know that too good is the right answer because it still has like an average stat line. It
Mhm.
still is uninkable, but it
Mhm.
has a lot of utility and a lot of play value if you know how to use it right or you know when the appropriate time to play it is.
So the rabbit came out in set 4. We have set 3 and 75% of set 4 released. Do you currently see anything in the game that compares to rabbit?
Off the top of my head, I don't think so.
No chance.
No.
It's a trap. You just it's a trap.
I mean, I figured you were tricking me.
All right. The most annoying card in Lorcana is.
Ooh, I think the most annoying card in Lorcana is it's got to be Bucky Prince John. I know that's two
Ooh,
cards, but
yeah, that's fine.
there's
I'll take both. It's okay.
there's something to be said about when I sit down and I see somebody playing Emerald and I see them put a Bucky and then I see them put a Prince John and like I just know what's coming next and no matter what I do with my rabbit, sometimes it's just not good enough.
That's
I've
very
had
fair.
some great wins against Emerald decks, but I've also had some really tough losses against Emerald decks.
Yeah, and we're talking about cards, that have ward, that sit in play, that have an evergreen mechanic. Bucky at the end of the day is like an evergreen card that every single Floodborn that gets printed until now, until forever, he
Gets to
works with.
trigger off of him.
Right. So this is a card that very likely never fully goes away, or it might get forgotten and then brought back like at an opportune moment. Um, so it's very interesting that you do pick that card because it's a card that might annoy you for like the next 3 years.
I, to be honest with you, I fully expect that. I mean, when I in the TCG House of Cards tournament, when I won Elsa, which was the second tournament, the finals was against an Emerald Steel deck, and they were not easy games. Um, like I didn't go into that saying, "Hey, I feel great about this. I'm gonna win." I mean, granted, no one should ever do that. Like you never want to psych yourself up too much.
Right.
But that's never a matchup that I'm excited to see, especially as a Ruby Amethyst.
I don't think any of us are really excited to see Bucky. Like a Bucky on turn 2 is pretty close to nightmarish.
No, seeing somebody ink a Bucky, on the other hand, that's a great feeling. Smiles for
Give it the thumb. Give it the thumb.
exactly.
Very fair. The one character I'd love to see in Lorcana is.
The one character I would absolutely love to see in Lorcana is Lady from Lady and the Tramp. Because she is well, first of all, Lady and the Tramp is my favorite movie. And there's
Okay.
just something about Lady. So there is a Bucky
So
archetype. Dalmatians exist. That's all I can say.
okay, that's fair. So let's follow up. Like what would you love to see Lady do in the game? Like what would make sense from like her character standpoint?
I feel like she's just a sweetheart.
Mhm.
And there would like maybe
So definitely Amber, right?
yeah,
Like,
she's
like it just fits the theme, right?
it
Loving.
totally
I
fits.
totally. We can. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, it totally fits that. I mean, so far a lot of the puppies we've seen with that archetype are Amber, like Perdita and the
Yeah,
Dalmatians,
that's
Rolly,
true.
Patches. So I don't know, but
Okay.
that's just from like a back to like why I fell in love with the game. That's what I'm waiting for. Like Olaf has cards. Olaf is another character who I love. Um,
Yeah. I don't
Even if
know.
it's
Maybe
not a
she's.
good deck, if it ever exists, you'll see me have a fun deck with it. 100.
I mean, listen, foils are collectible. It's fine. Um, Lorcana Set Championships were.
Lorcana Set Championships were exciting, exhausting, and really fun all at the same time. Um, as somebody who's really been invested in this game from wanting to play since I got my hands on cards, it was really nice to see people who don't play as often excited and wanting to come out and play. On the flip side, it was really nice to see so many stores jumping up and hosting these tournaments. Like, yes, it was a limited time frame. Yes, people had to pick and choose where they went. Yes, we had the event where 40 people went to one store and 20 people went to the other one because everyone has their loyalty. But at the end of the day, there was so much excitement around the love of the game and wanting to play. That was really cool. As somebody who loves to compete but also loves to play, I was exhausted at the end of it just from constantly playing. But at the same time, like I wouldn't change it for anything.
And how many set championships did you play in?
I played in 7.
All right, so in a what was it, 10-week or 10-day span?
Yeah, so
Yeah,
I played the Friday night, I played Saturday, I played Sunday. I took
yep,
a few days off of playing in tournaments, but still
yep,
had other events going on. Um,
yep.
then I played Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday.
That's
That's a lot of
that's a
playing.
commitment right there. Again, if we go back to that circle of 9 months ago, you were like never played a card game in your life. And here we are in April of 2024, and you're like, "Yep, I'm gonna play 7 in the next 10 days."
Pretty much. And I
That's
wouldn't have
incredible.
changed it for anything. Like
That's incredible. Absolutely incredible.
I like you mentioned in the beginning, I did win one championship. I got a runner-up mat. I hit top 4 2 additional times. Three other times, 2 other times I hit top 8 of the other
Mhm.
3 times. Um, would I have loved to play differently? Would I have loved to know what I did better? Always, because I want to push myself to be a better person to learn from my mistakes. But I would not change a thing about how the set champs ran. Every store I went to, whether it was my locals or a store I had never been at before or only been at once, everyone was very welcoming. Everyone wanted to make sure we had a good time. The last event that I played in on the Sunday was out at a store on the Cape, Vanguard, who is so welcoming. I've been there a handful of times. The community is awesome there. When we sit and play every time, nobody knows who's going to win because we're all competitive. We all want to sit there and do it. And I have to give a huge shout out to Clayton, the 10-year-old who made top 4 with us. Absolutely
Crazy.
incredible.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about like a storybook there. It's like we have, a brand new card player to the game in the finals of the set champ. We have a 10-year-old in the top 4 of a set championship. Like those are things that I do not think that you could say about other card games.
It's it's crazy to me. I mean, not only is that store so welcoming and inclusive that it didn't matter like at the end of the day who got it, but the fact that we all could go in there and have equal chance and nobody looked upon anybody differently is just it's such a warm and welcoming feeling.
I have one more for you.
Okay.
My goals for Disney Lorcana are
My goals for Disney Lorcana are to continue building myself to be the best player. And what I mean by that is not just competitively, but I want to make sure that I understand all the different mechanics, the pros and cons of cards. So when you ask me something like, what is the best card? I can sit there. So when our team is having a discussion about cards we do and don't like, I feel good about contributing and confident in what I'm saying. Because 9 months ago, I was not confident in what I was doing. 2 months ago, when we played again in Philly at SCG, I was definitely not as confident as I am today. So I want to keep pushing myself to play, to be a good person, to help build that community too.
so 9 months ago we had it. You fell in love with Lorcana, which I think is great. You just spent 10 days. We had a weekend off. Well, you had a weekend off. I went to SCG Richmond. I didn't have a weekend off.
I had a weekend
Uh,
off of Lorcana, but I was still doing
no,
Disney pin trading.
I
So
don't want to hear it. You had a weekend off. All right, I don't want to hear it.
okay.
We are we are getting ready for our next mission, next goal as a team, but we're gonna save that for a little bit. We're gonna play a little game, right? This is another game I like to play. It's called Would You Rather.
Okay.
I know you're familiar with it, so we're gonna do a couple of these. There was some questions in the Discord that I thought asked some interesting things, so I tried to supplement them into this. Okay.
All right, I'm ready.
So our first one is: would you rather, or choose one, hidden incaster or medallion weights, and why?
Hmm. I think from a mechanic standpoint, I would pick Hidden Inkcaster because there's something to be said about having the ability to ink any card. Um, sometimes you mulligan poorly. Well, like you put your cards back and you just draw the wrong hand. And so perhaps this gives you a way to ink something you otherwise couldn't.
Okay. Um. Hmm. That's interesting. So I think the cards are. We can both agree they're very different, right?
Yes.
Which I think is interesting. First and foremost, they both read similar lines of text in like the lines of draw a card.
Right.
So both these cards have the ability to replace themselves. The other one does give the unique ability to kind of manage your resources more efficiently, while Medallion Weights helps you manage the challenging phases of the game more efficiently. So for me, it's really interesting to hear that you are much more of a like resource management focused than you are challenging focused, which ironically goes back to this world of like you didn't understand questing versus challenging to start the game.
Yes, it definitely comes a little bit full circle there. I don't know. There's something to be said about as a Ruby Amethyst player, you mulligan away your cards, you play your 1 drop of Olaf, you play your
Mhm.
2 drop of Cusco, you've inked 2 cards, and unfortunately now I'm sitting there with 2 rabbits, a Be Prepared, and a Chair Lady.
And
And like
losing the game.
and losing the game. And like, yeah, those are great cards. They're very powerful. But there are certainly times where as much as I don't want to ink those cards, I can't skip ink on turn 3. I just can't.
Yeah.
So there's
Yeah.
something about that card that kind of just sparks me.
All right. Can be difficult. I can see that.
That
All
being
right.
said, I think the challenging to draw a card is a very strong mechanic that I know I will see myself exploring.
Yeah, if it were me, I think Medallion Weights is a slam dunk for this one. But it's okay. We can agree to disagree. Next, let's have a little fun. All right. So we have the Mickey Mouse Musketeer Captain and Minnie Mouse Musketeer Champion.
Hmm.
What do we got?
I think that I like Minnie better.
Okay.
I think that there's something to be said about a bodyguard. Granted, this is
Yeah.
a little bit later in the game, so her ability may or may, as a bodyguard, might not stick. A 1/5 stat line is not a bad stat line for a bodyguard. I mean, granted, 1 means that whatever challenges into it probably isn't going to be banished, but it definitely can contribute to the game. And I don't know, dramatic entrance kind of excites me. It's kind of like the opposite of chair ladies, and I love my chair ladies.
What I love about dramatic entrance is with the Amber theme of actually being able to utilize support again. Uh, we had seen these worlds where World's Greatest Criminal Mind was kind of talked about through the Queen and things like that. But I actually think, ironically, like support working with this particular character is very interesting playline because you can actually now quest support your opposing character, play mini, and just flat out banish them, and on top of that, get a bodyguard with 5 willpower.
Exactly.
Uh, I can totally see a world where that card ends up being at least like play test it, right? Like like anytime a character says when it comes to play banish something, we got to at least think about that,
It's
right?
definitely a light bulb that goes off at the fact that you can banish. How it's going to play out, obviously, time will tell.
Yeah,
That's not to say that I don't think Mickey is strong. I think it's interesting to see the bodyguard support and kind of what that element will do, but it doesn't today excite me as much.
very fair. As a sidebar question, which one of these is more likely to be enchanted?
Ooh, I'd love to see Minnie just because I love Minnie Mouse, but something tells me it's Mickey.
Fair enough. I'm with you. Choose one: Belle or Ariel.
Hmm.
If we're going for art, I gotta go Belle. I mean, the art on Belle is
The art on
phenomenal.
Belle is absolutely fantastic. I was just reading the flavor text to refamiliarize myself a little bit.
Right.
um, I think the ward on Ariel is just too strong right now. I mean, we were just talking before about Prince John Bucky and how impactful that ward can be on something with a 1 and a 2. Let
Yeah,
alone now we have a 6 cost with a 3/4 stat line that quests for 3 and
maybe 5.
potentially up for 5 if you have items in play. That's some pretty
Seems
powerful.
seems okay. Seems okay. Yeah.
tools.
It's okay. Yeah, I think I'm with you. I think Ariel has a real chance to be a stud in the aforementioned metagame.
I do too, and the likelihood of seeing her by herself is probably low, so that she protects herself from someone like a Lady Tremaine.
Yeah, I can see that. Well, one last thing to discuss is none other than the upcoming Disney Lorcana Challenges.
Yes.
So, Melissa, we have Atlanta, we have Chicago here in America, also Lille and Germany. But for us, how important was it to you to like attend the first Disney Lorcana Challenge?
It's something very important to me. Not only from a competitive aspect, but as somebody who like I'm just very excited about where this game is today, where it's going, and being able to one play in a room of both competitive and casual people who love the game is just something that I don't think I could ever miss.
Yeah.
I mean, what? There's going to be over 2,000 Lorcana fans in the room, all with the same purpose. Like, of course, everybody wants to win. No, of course, not all 2,000 of us can win, but we're
Only be
all there.
one.
Exactly. But we're
Only
all
be
there
one,
for the same
sadly.
purpose at the end of the day. Like, we love the game. And
Yeah,
so,
the idea that we have 2,000 plus participants, plus spectators, plus judges, plus event staff. Like, there's going to be, I don't know, maybe 2,500 people in the room, all there for Disney Lorcana. And that's remarkable. I mean, we're talking a year ago, we didn't even know what this game was, right? Like, we barely understood the rules of the game.
right.
And now here we are, 2,000 plus strong, ready to raid like Atlanta,
Yeah, I think it's
crazy.
really exciting. There's a lot of positive energy given it's finally here. I mean, there's definitely people like yourself and people on the TFM team who have been waiting for competitive since day one because they jumped into a game because it's a competitive card game. There's people on the flip side like me who want to play because they want to play. And so being able to really, I think, have everybody mesh together. And I mean, we've seen PPG was able to make the event larger with Ravensburger and really double or four times the pool so that more people can participate. Like, it's really exciting to see that there's so many people who want to be there that like I want to say I was part of that.
Yeah, I think it's crazy when we discuss the 500 to 2,000 and the anger, and like the sadness of the original 512. And if you didn't get in, it was a hard day. But like the craziest thing to really consider there is that there was all of that anger and all of that sadness because it's something that we all very much love. Uh,
Exactly.
and you know, kudos to everyone at Ravensburger and Purpley Games that were able to figure it out. Because I do think it being the first, it's something that I know there are people that play Magic that said, "Hey, I played in the first Pro Tour." Like it's something that like is like a goal. It's a bucket list. It's like a reminder of things that you were successful. Like you did that.
And like
I think just being a participant, being there, being a part of that moment, that could be a memory that lasts forever. In all honesty.
yeah, and not to kind of come full circle, but it's also part of the reason that I was so interested in being at PAX Unplugged in the first place because it was the first constructed tournament that was officially like Ravensburger run. And to me, there was something special about kind of being part of the history, so to speak. So to be able to
I
have that
agree.
experience once again and be there in Atlanta, I'm definitely very excited for.
So the one thing we haven't talked about much is something that I think is very important to gaming, and you've touched on it a little bit with all of the communities that you've spoken of. But speak to me of the camaraderie that came with starting and playing in a new card game.
In what aspect?
So you've met all these people, you've developed new friends, you've networked, you've really even maybe developed your own local communities a bit, right? And I think this being your first game, like, I guess my real question is, like, how much has this game kind of changed your, even like, so maybe like your daily life in a way?
Yeah, I think that's fair. So since I guess Lorcana has started, like Wednesdays are game night. Every
Right.
Wednesday, essentially, we go to locals, we play. The group that I go to is at Omar's, and it's definitely a more casual group, but we all originally bonded because we loved Disney. Two of the people that we play with have played other card games, not super competitively, not like they go on tour, but to them, the reason they got back into it is one of them is a father, or two of them are fathers with kids, and they said, I can do this, but I can also eventually teach my kids to do this. So it was definitely really nice in the beginning having just people to talk to and really learn the game with. But shout out to Timmy, to Kern, to Justin, to the whole crew. Like every step of the way that I've gone, that Ben's gone, that our whole group has gone through Set Champs, like we root each other on. And there's something to be said kind of at a not competitive but local way to have that. And like I mentioned before, I've gone out to a store on Cape Cod a bunch, and the Vanguard crew is one of the most welcoming communities I've ever been a part of. Like they do every month Lorcana Fest, an entire day just dedicated to playing. We do constructed, we do draft, we do sealed. Like we sit there and they have starter decks, just hang out, talk to each other. The last time we all sat there and just practiced because we knew Set Champs were 2 weeks away. And so we just sat there and we played and had a great time. But it's refreshing, I think, to me to have people who we don't all want the same thing. Like, not everybody has the opportunity to travel to different events. Not everybody can commit once a week to going to locals, 4 nights a week talking to their friends on the computer to play or whatever the case may be. But for me, it's been really nice to have both like a local scene and more recently like the team's support in building decks and figuring out what is best to play. Why am I playing this? And just cheering me on, supporting me, helping me build myself.
Crazy.
It really,
A year
really
ago,
is.
I mean, literally a year ago, the game didn't exist, and here we are a year later, preparing for, like, I mean, I know that I have played in larger tournaments as a professional, but it's been so long that I barely even remember them to be like in a tournament to this extent. So to think that a year ago, like, we were literally learning the rules and saw, like, I don't know, like 30 cards, here we are, we're about to get we're about to get Ursula's Return, which will be like up to 816. And it's been a truly remarkable year as we approach everything. And I think it's cool because each and every event that I've attended, I've met people, I've gained friends, I've gained teammates, all those things. So to hear your story from, I've never played a game competitively or even casually, really honestly, like, to go, hey, here we are a year later, and I've won three championships, like three tournaments to say, right, at least, and I've top eighted all these other tournaments. I've been successful. I've been in the room. I've played against Dan and Rob and others of these players that have been successful in games or other games and things like that. Like, you have been a part of all of that, and I think it's remarkable to say because I I honestly think that you are truly one of a kind in that aspect. I don't know many players that go into a brand new game and so very much want to succeed at it competitively that you have in 10 months. I think it's truly remarkable. I thought it was hearing your story over the last 6 weeks as we've, built a friendship, which I think is great. It's been really fun because I can't remember the last time that I was in a position where I wanted those goals at such a young age and things like that. And it almost feels that way to me, that like you are that 10-year-old kid that you played in, where it's like, hey, I just want to have fun. I want to win. I want to be good. I want to do all these things. And here you are doing it for a first time, which is, it's kind of crazy to me. It truly is.
Yeah, I mean, obviously have to give a huge shout out to Ben. He definitely taught me the ropes in the beginning. He's like I mentioned in the beginning, has played a lot of other games before, and so he bared with my stupid questions and all my nonsense of, wait, why am I turning my card sideways, and what does it mean when I'm inking a card? And like, not to sound corny, but I didn't understand what those things were. So he
Yeah.
definitely got me really far in where I was. So have to obviously give him a shout out. But at the end of the day, like, we jumped in it together because we wanted something fun to do. The rest of it has kind of just been its own fun roller coaster that I'm excited to see where it goes.
It's crazy to think that in about 12 days we will be sitting in an Airbnb jamming a billion games of Disney Lorcana to just jam a billion more, if we're being honest. But
Wouldn't have it any other way.
Exactly. Before we close out here, is there anything else that you would like to discuss today?
No, not that I can think of. Just really excited for Chapter 4 to come out, for the game to kind of keep building and see what's next.
Ursula's Return will be here. We have Atlanta, which unfortunately we are not allowed to play Ursula's Return. But a couple weeks after that, we have Chicago. You will be in both, if I'm correct.
Yes, I will be in both Atlanta and Chicago. So to me, Chicago is very much like SCG Philly was when Chapter 3 started, kind of the first big event that people are excited for to really shake out the meta. So I'm eager to get testing with Chapter 4, but at the same time, I'm ready to prep for Atlanta and do the best we can do there.
As much as I am excited to be in Atlanta and participate in the first Lorcana Challenge, I am 100% more excited to play in Chicago.
I could not agree with that statement more. I was talking to some of my friends earlier today about how people kind of just took a breather. I know you mentioned you were in Richmond. A bunch of the team was in Richmond, but everyone is kind of ready to reset and pick up Ursula's Return. So I'm excited to kind of get my hands dirty and see what we can brew up there.
In older games, when things like this have happened, I've always said, like, I won't even read a card. I won't even like acknowledge a deck until the 23rd of May or whatever that Sunday is. I'm not even sure. Basically, until the moment I am like eliminated from Top Cut, like Ursula's Return is dead to me, which isn't true at all. But like,
I know it's such a mixed feeling that I have, because I'm so excited for like the 17th, 18th to come to get my hands on Ursula's Return and see what cards I open. But at the same time, I don't want to forget and distract myself, because like in my head, the competitive side says you have a mission. You want to get top 64, top 32, and get to top 8 or whatever that magical top is. And put your like, go Melissa, put all your time into being the best you can be there. So
any last shout outs?
Shout out to the team.
There you go.
Everyone's been great.
It's been a lot of fun. We've already had several dinners together. They were a blast. Looking forward to whatever the hell happens in Atlanta. I'm sure it'll be fun and memorable. Yeah. Is there anywhere you would like anyone to find you? Or you a ghost? Are we on Instagram? Are we on Twitter? Do we want anyone to find us there?
No, Instagram and Facebook. I don't really use Twitter very much. I kind of had like a high school Twitter phase, and then it went away.
Yeah, I wish I didn't have to use Twitter either, but that's besides the point.
Yeah, Facebook and Instagram. You're welcome to link them below.
All right, I will link at Lizard Kitty. It's not what it is, but
yeah.
Can we touch on Lizard Kitty real quick? Why Lizard Kitty? I still don't even know the answer to this. Why is it Lizard Kitty?
One day when it just became, and then it just stuck.
It was just like, Lizard Kitty? Like, it just stuck? Hold on.
There's more to it, but you'll get the story another time.
All right. Save it for the next one, guys. After she wins the challenge, it's fine. Well, everyone, thank you so much for sitting with me and Lizard Kitty, the Lorcana prodigy, Melissa. I hope you guys enjoyed it. We will catch you in the next one.